Hi. So today we are going to be working on the Rooster and Chicken craft kit. I'm going to show you start to finish how to get them all done. Let's get going. And in your kit you will get your rooster, your chicken, 2 feet, 1 for each. You will get your decoupage paper. If you specified which decoupage paper you want, that's the one you're going to get. Otherwise, I have picked it for you. And if you have this one, this is floral burlap portrait. So this is there's floral burlap that is landscape mode, and there's one that's portrait mode. This is the portrait that I'm using. And then you also will have some random floral bits from IOD's transfer. I am picking the florals from a specific transfer. So you're not going to get florals from random transfers. You're going to get them from one transfer so they match. They kind of work together. These specific florals are from the Whispering Willows transfer that came out last spring, I think. That's where these ones are from, and these are the ones that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to put these aside so we don't need them right yet. And we're going to get going on step 1, which is going to be decoupaging these beauties while painting them first. When you're doing decoupage, these are really light colored, so it's not super important to base coat it in white, but I always base coat it in white because there's some knots and with the wood grain, unless you want that to show through. But in this case, I don't. So you got a little pot of white paint in your kit, and all you're going to do is you're going to base coat your whole chicken and rooster. So I find it easier to do this edge first. Get that paint all on there. These roosters and chickens are all hand cut by me. So they're all different. Well, the pattern is all the same, but they're literally hand cut. I don't use a CNC machine, so it's just me and my bandsaw and my scroll saw, and then sanding them. They're not sanded to perfection, so just don't panic if you see some saw marks. You're not going to get slivers from them by any means, but or you shouldn't anyways. But you will still see some saw marks. It just adds character. These are very farmhousey, cottage core kind of design. So you're just going to embrace the imperfections. The rooster has the most because of his comb and then his crazy tail feathers. He's the most intricate, I guess you would say. Now these are dry. So now we are going to use You each got a fusion decoupage and transfer gel in your kit. You each got one of these little beauties. So that's what I'm going to use. Mine has been opened already. Yours are brand new. So first, actually, see, I get all ahead of myself. Let's plan out the paper. So like I said, this is the floral burlap. And I'm wanting to use just kind of random spots. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to kind of eyeball this out here and just cut it. Just to make this a little smaller, I'm going to score it on here so I can see. My X-Acto knife isn't exactly sharp. There we go. So there's that side. And remember, you have to do both sides. So is this going to give me enough for the other side? Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, so there's both sides for Mr. Rooster. And we can also get both sides for Miss Chicken. A sharp blade will really help. Or just scissors. Okay, so there's one side. And then the other side. Perfect. I'm trying to hold it, support it, and cut it all at the same time. Okay, so I have about this much left of my paper, and that's enough to do another project of some sort. So never throw that away, always save it. I have a drawer full of bits like that I save for little projects or when you need a simple little background somewhere, or if you're junk journaling or some such. Okay. Now, let us get back to our rooster. So now you're going to want to paint your decoupage medium on your rooster. When I'm in a spot like this where you've got this intricacy, I just brush towards the free edge because I don't want the decoupage medium to kind of bunch up here, and I want to make sure I'm getting that edge. You can always go back and I'm getting stuff all over. It's a good thing I don't have any good clothes. You can always go back and touch up the edges if you've missed a spot or if your decoupage medium dried before you had a chance to apply the paper, but you can't do that in the middle. So you want to make sure that it's wet and fully covered, because this dries pretty quickly. Okay. So when you apply your paper, I just quickly slid it on there and applied it. And the decoupage medium will wet this part, and then all this part here gets kind of tight and it wants to pull. So with a mist bottle or a squirt bottle, I just give it a mist, and that helps keep it a little more under control. Take a balled up piece of saran wrap and just lightly go over and smooth out the majority of the wrinkles. You might have some wrinkles, that's perfectly fine. You will notice that most of them will kind of shrink out as it dries. So don't freak out about wrinkles. Plus, in this case, like, this isn't a piece of furniture, this isn't a drawer front or a cabinet front or something like that. It's a little decor piece. So don't be super picky about it. And I've got it all smoothed out. Smoothed out, is that the word? So now I'm just going to go over and paint my top on here. Remember, when you're decoupaging, you are sandwiching decoupage paper in between two clear coats. Is the kind of the basics of it. Your first coat is your adhesion coat, and your second coat is your sealer. And you don't want excess. You don't want too much. You don't want to be too messy with this. Otherwise, you're waiting forever for it to dry. So, okay, so this is our rooster. I'll show you the back so you can see. It's just kind of stuck on there. I'm just going to put him aside. And I'm going to do the one side of the chicken. So now which side was which? There we go. I'm assuming this was the way that went. All right, chicken's turn. So same process. Make sure you have even coverage of your decoupage medium. This is also why we cut it bigger. Like, I've got 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch or more oversized. I'm going to give this a little mist again. And again with my saran wrap. Using the saran wrap is a huge help. It kind of, you don't have as much friction. If you use your fingertips, you can easily tear the paper. So using the saran wrap helps. Helps to be able to play with it a little bit more. You can still tear it if you work it too much, but you do have a little bit more grace. Okay. Now let's heat this up a little bit to dry without blowing my papers. Even using a heat tool, you will see any wrinkles. It's really hard to see wrinkles on this paper, which is kind of awesome. But using the heat tool will even shrink back any of those wrinkles. Now, I don't know, while this is drying, can you see it kind of shrinking up? Like this is being held flat, but these bits are kind of shrinking up. If you find like right here is really tight, it's like a drum here. So what I'm going to do is take my X-Acto knife, my edge is here, and I'm just going to cut that because it takes the pressure off. So you can do that kind of in anywhere where you have where it seems, ooh, be careful. Okay, I'm going to do that on this one now. Okay. Because sometimes if you don't give it that relief, it can pull up on your edges and cause problems with your edges. Which isn't a big deal because it's easy to go back and touch up those edges. Also, if you're using a heat tool, don't let it get too hot. It will cause it to bubble. You don't want that. You have to be kind of careful. I'm just wanting it to get dry enough that I can flip it over and work on the other side. Okay, this is actually dry enough, so I'm not fighting with 2 layers of paper. I'm just gonna put that, and I'm just gonna use a sanding block because it's what I have. This is gonna be noisy. I need something to put this on. So yeah, go set it on here. So all you're going to want to do is take your sandpaper or your sanding block, whatever you have handy, and just sand down away from the paper. And what that is going to do is it's going to give you this nice clean edge here. So that way you get a nice perfectly cut edge instead of cutting it out to match and then trying to place that on there like that, because that would be a little bit of a struggle, I think. This rooster is a little bit of a challenge because it's got so many of these little curves. So he's a little bit of a challenge compared to the chicken. So probably easier with just a piece of sandpaper versus the block. And you can use any kind of a grit, kind of 220 and higher. Well, you don't want to go too high. Kind of 120 to 220 are your happy mediums. I'm just going to work around here and try to get the bulk of this off, so I'm not fighting. With this paper too much. I'm just going to use the this is hard to do on camera, so you can see, to try to feel really awkward doing this way. I'm going to grab a piece of sandpaper. Might make this a little bit easier in this curve. There we go. Perfect. Try to always just go the one way, because otherwise you can pull it up. See how this is lifted here? That's an okay spot to have that problem. You don't want to have that in the middle. So always pay really good attention to your center. Okay, I'm gonna have to just move the camera a bit and actually use the table. This is where this pesky rooster and his little nooks and crannies. There we go. Okay. All kinds of dust. Okay, so I'm just going to touch up this little edge here, and that's super easy to do with just a little bit of your decoupage medium. There you go. Okay, Miss Chicken's turn. Same bit. I'm just going to leave the camera here so you can the easiest way to just go off the edge of the table, I find. You just kind of follow the contour around. There we go. Now all my bits fell on the floor, so they're out of my way. Okay, so there's one side of each of them. Now we have to do the same thing on the other side. That part is done. So now I'm going to, because we're putting transfers on here, I want those to be, I want it to really stick. So I am going to actually add a coat of Big Top to these to really seal them and make sure that our transfers will adhere really, really well. Okay. So Big Top, you each have some of this. It'll be labeled. It'll be labeled as Big Top or Sealer. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a coat of this. And you might notice that you will get some wrinkles pop up again, but they will go away when it dries. And before we put transfers on, we have to make sure these are really, really dry. Transfers don't like dust and they don't like moisture. So you have to make sure your projects are very clean and dry. I'm wondering if these would stand. Is she gonna stand before I glue her? Looks like she will. This way I can get both sides done. Stand her there. Your decoupage medium would probably work fine as a sealer to put your transfers on. I just like this little bit of extra. So I always put this little bit of base on here. Okay. So I'm going to dry these now with the heat tool, and then we will work on the transfers. Okay. So I'm really liking this paper. This is working out really well as a backdrop for these, I think. So now let's work with our transfer bits. So you'll each get a few little bits of transfers to put on your chicken and your rooster. And you can cut them apart kind of any which way you like. So with this one, because this is a bigger one, I'm going to cut it in half. So because remember you're doing both sides. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to cut out along this flower. So that kind of leaves me this little bit and then this one to use somewhere else. And I think I might use this one. Trying to decide which one's going to go where. And I think I might use this one on the rooster. And I'll save the little bits for the chicken. Okay, so you each will have one of these little sticks in your kit. If you lose your stick, you can always use an old credit card or anything like that, an old gift card, something like that. And just kind of pick where you want it to sit. Keep in mind that if you have any spot that you have cut, you're going to want to put that just off the edge so that it doesn't look like a chopped piece. So you just take your backing paper off and rub on your transfer. So now in this spot, you can rub this around the edge. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to cut them. And all I do is I take my X-Acto knife, which is super dull. Again, you don't want to use a dull one. And I'm just going to cut right along the edge of the wood. I'm going to do that for both of these because I don't want it to wrap around. Wow, this is really dull. Won't even poke through. Okay. And same with down here. I guess I could have just followed it. And all I'm doing is following the wood. I'm just cutting those little pieces off. The transfers, I would just sand it but the transfers really stick. And sometimes it's kind of, you end up sanding too much of your paint or something to get that transfer off. So now I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna start lifting from the top and rubbing this transfer on at the same time. Just lifting slowly to make sure that it's all coming off, that you're not being left with any transfer on this backing paper. And as long as your surface is clean and dust-free and super dry, you won't have any problems with that step. And then your backing paper has it has a really matte side and a really high gloss side. Take that matte side and burnish that down on your piece. You can use your fingertips to do this, or I like using this because it doesn't stick and I don't have any worries of it wrecking my transfer. And you can go on those edges and make sure they're nice and down, and check him out. That just adds a perfect amount of little color oomph, right? I think it looks awesome. So now I'm just going to take this one on this side and kind of do the same thing. So I'm just working with what I've got here. So I don't want to lose all my flowers by hanging them off this way. So I'm just going to kind of place the flowers so that I don't have a lot of waste. Like there's just a little wee bit there that'll come off, a little bit here, a little bit of leaf, and the edge of this stem. Remember what I mentioned before is you don't want that cut edge to be kind of floating in the middle of La La Land. You can always, if you have another little flower or a leaf or something, you can always cover that up. That works too. So once you kind of eyeball how you want that to go, then take your backing paper off. You want to make sure you're ready to lay this down when you take that backing paper off, because once you lay it down, you can't pick it back up again. It sticks. And transfers aren't forgiving that way. So same thing, I'm going to take my stick and I'm going to rub it over the entire transfer. Especially on those edges. Be really careful when you're on close to a free edge, because if you really rub like that, you're going to scuff up your fresh decoupage, and you could pull back and it'll go underneath the backing paper and it can wreck your transfer. So just be really careful on those edges. Okay, so now that I got it rubbed on there, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to come in and I'm going to cut these edges. And like I said, you don't have to do this step. I just don't want to wrap my transfer on this edge. That's just my vision in my head. You don't have to. You can wrap it around if you want. I'm not saying it's not going to look good. It probably will. I usually do wrap it around. But for some reason, that's not what I want to do here. Okay. Just make sure those edges are rubbed down. And then I'm just going to grab this free edge. Making sure, okay. I'm just going to grab that and rub as I go and slowly peel this up. You'll know if your substrate, your base isn't ideal if your transfer does not want to come up, if it doesn't want to rub down. If you're pulling this up and transfer is sticking to the back and it will not go down, there's something wrong with the below layers. So you either didn't prep it properly. In this case, that's not an issue because it's on raw wood. But if you're using these transfers on furniture or something, if If the paint's not gonna stick, your transfer's not gonna stick to the paint, because as you're rubbing it down, it's going to lift the paint. The transfer will actually pick up the paint and pull it up. So you have to make sure it's really clean and dry. There you go. He looks pretty. Okay, so we're gonna put him aside and we're gonna work on Miss Chicken here. And for her, I've got these little bits. Now this one, I've obviously used the top of it somewhere before. So I'm gonna have to disguise that. Or I might just cut. The transfer is just the image. So the white space is nothing. It's the image itself is your transfer. And there's barely any halo. It's very, very tiny. And by halo, I mean the little edge around, like a little border all the way around. It's very, very minimal. I don't even know if you're going to be able to see it. I'm not sure if you can see that in there, but it's extremely minimal, which is good. Okay, I think I'm going to use that one on that side. So I'll use this one on this side. And okay, so I'm going to try to hold this where I wanted it. This one's a little harder to see. So this is a good example on what you're looking for as you're pulling it up. Can you see how that flower is coming up with the backing paper? You don't want that. So lay it back down. That's why you do this slowly. You're slowly picking up this backing paper as you're rubbing it down. Because you can just put it back down and everything's fine. Also, try not to touch the back onto anything until you're ready to put it down. If you get any of the oils off of your skin or any dust or grime on the back, it won't stick. Transfers have a few rules, and it's mostly just clean and dry. And I think I'm going to put this little one. I'm going to put this. Sometimes it's easier to kind of Maybe this one is going in the different direction. Sure. I can end up in like a procrastination pit of accomplishing nothing when it comes to planning out where to put transfers. So sometimes I just have to be, yeah, that's great. It's gonna be great. Just go with it. Look how pretty she is. Now this side, kind of had that down there first. They don't have to match, but and then if we put this beauty here, that's gonna work. We're gonna make it work. Perfect. What these little floral bits do is they just add little pops of color. Some of your decoupage papers will have some good color on them, but I tried to pick ones that were more of a background. Just makes things easier. One more. There you go. Both have their transfers. Now we're going to seal them again. So another coat of Big Top. Not necessarily necessary, but I always like, unless they're on glass, I always like to seal in my transfers, and I always seal my transfers with Big Top. Big Top is tried and tested and true as far as it works really well with transfers. It doesn't, certain clear coats have solvents in them that can kind of eat away at the transfers, because remember, transfers are basically very, very, very thin little decals. So you don't want to use anything harsh on them. Okay, let those sit there for a bit. Now these feet, I just want to scuff them up just a little bit. So I'm just gonna scuff up my edges here just to distress them a little. Okay, I'm just gonna go over this now with a coat of Big Top to seal these, and that way the sheen matches. You don't have matte colored feet or matte sheen feet and satin sheen. Rooster and chicken. Perfect. And it's super fast. Big Top is very liquidy. It's not thick like DIY's paint. It's pretty liquidy, so it goes a really long way. A 16 ounce bottle lasts you a really long time. Okay, so now what I want to do is I have these little posts. Let's give these a quick dry. And I have, this is Tight Bonds wood glue. You can use any kind of wood glue. That's the one thing that your kit does not come with the glue. But any kind of wood glue will work. So I'm just gonna squirt a little bit of glue in the feet, and it's going to squish out and make a mess. So just take a baby wipe and wipe that off. Well, you don't even have to because it'll help. And now I'm going to see, okay, keep in mind that these are hand done. So literally everything. I hand cut each little foot. I hand drilled these holes because I couldn't figure out a way to make them sit on my drill press. And then these beauties are hand drilled as well. So like this one, I don't know if you can see, it's a little bit off center, but it's not the biggest deal, I don't think. But what I want to do is I want to make sure he's going to stand. The Rooster is the one you really want to check. So he stands great in that foot. So I'm happy with that. And just because sometimes if he's a little bit off, he might want to fall back. And she's pretty good. So she stands pretty much regardless of the foot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that little drop of glue in here. And it's okay if you get some on the outside because that's only going to help. And we are going to push him down on his foot. Wipe off any excess glue that squirts out. Make sure he's kind of straight, pointing towards the front, and just make sure you're all good. Some of them you might find will stand perfectly fine without being glued down, but I'd glue it if I were you, because sometimes it could be kind of wobbly if you don't. They're a lot harder to work on if they were pre-glued, which is why I did not do that. I left that step up to you. There. And there they are. They are adorable. Perfect little spring projects. So that's it. That is our cute little chicken rooster pair. I think they turned out really good. They're gonna look cute sitting on a shelf or anywhere your heart desires to sit them in your house or in your office or anything. And I'm not sure if these craft kits are going to be something that I am going to put out every month. I might do it quarterly. If you have an opinion on that, let me know. Thanks so much for joining me today while we did this fun little craft kit, and hopefully you can add any of these techniques to any other project that you're working on. If you have any questions, let me know. All of the products that are used in this craft kit are available at sentimentalsalvage.ca. Keep your eyes on your email for the next craft kit. Thanks so much.